Today we will learn something about the chapter ecosystem from bio. So when we talk about ecosystem, is basically if you see that the whole world has got a variety of different organisms and a variety of different places, variety of different kind of environmental conditions. Like if you go towards the north, you will find extreme north, you will find snow-capped mountains, ice everywhere, and then it is so cold out there. The mountains are there. There are pine trees, and that you'll find that if you see that particular area, you will have a typical kind of trees over there, typical kind of the environment over there, and everything will be very specific over there. The moment you go towards, like in India itself, we go towards the west, what we find out is you get the beaches and the palm trees and the coconut trees and all. So you can see the type of trees and type of the environment around there will be completely different. The same way, if you go to a place where there is a river nearby or a lake or a pond nearby, you will find that automatically the area surrounding it will be having a different kind of environment. If we see, like we see about the areas in Assam and all, you will find that they are like evergreen forest. They are the forest which is completely green because the rainfall over there is extremely high. So everywhere you will find that depending upon place to place, depending upon what is there in the environment, there will be different kind of living organisms over there. So the organisms is going to be there in a different form. You will never see a penguin in Mumbai. Okay, of course not in the zoo, but otherwise you will never see a yak in Mumbai, or you will never see a normal horse in a place where it is completely like a desert. Like desert in Thar desert, you will not see a horse, or you see a camel over there. So you can see that it is because of the different environmental conditions and the different kinds of nature available around it. The animals, the plants, the different kind of environmental conditions, like the sunlight reaching over there, the soil which is over there, everything will be of different kind. Now this system, this kind of a system, what is interrelated to each other. This thing is interrelated. Like if I have a particular soil, then I will get a particular kind of a plant. If I got a particular plant, I will get a particular kind of animal who could eat that plant. If I got that particular kind of element, then there will be another higher animal which could eat such kind of animals. So in this way the cycle keeps on, and this particular dependency cycle, what we can see over here, is nothing but the ecosystem. So ecosystem, we can see over here as per the textbook, if we go through one by one, we see that we see around us a vast variety of organisms living in varied conditions of land, water and climate. There are large agricultural fields, big orchards, forests, ponds, lakes, rivers, seas, ocean, etc. And there are hot deserts and snow-clad cold mountains. All such areas have the distinct characteristics of life. All the plants and animals are adapted to live only in their respective type of geographical areas. This is something very important, that the plants and animals which are over there are able to sustain, or they are able to live only in that particular condition. The moment you take them out of that condition, it becomes difficult for them to survive. So accordingly, we can define ecosystem as, what is ecosystem? An ecosystem is a self-contained area composed of all the different organisms. It is a self-contained area composed of all the different organisms. Like if I talk about one particular lake, तो lake में क्या है? पानी है, पानी के अंदर there are fishes के साथ में वहाँ पे seaweeds है, उसके बाद कुछ sea plants है, आजू बाजू में तो plants है, वहाँ पे बहुत सारे frogs है, and then there are butterflies, and the crabs are maybe there. So all they are related to that particular environment. So ecosystem is a self-contained area composed of all different living organisms living in it, interacting with each other. What do you mean by interacting with each other? They are related to each other. They are going to interact, means not that they are going to talk to each other, but basically they are going to live on each other. They are going to help them out to sustain. ये इसको खाएगा तो ये इसको खाएगा, तो automatically the life cycle keeps on continuing. So as well as interacting with the physical conditions, so interacting with itself, that each other, that is animals to animal and animal to plant, that interaction will be there, and also with the other kind of physical conditions like the sunlight, air, water, soil, climatic factors, etc. prevailing in that area. So depending upon the different kinds of the climatic conditions available over there, how much sunlight is available, how much amount of water is available, how much what is the kind of soil which is available over there, the climatic conditions which are there, all is going to be giving you the main thing as ecosystem. So ecosystem is a self-contained area composed of all the different organisms living in it, interacting with each other as well as interacting with the physical conditions, so that is sunlight, air, water, soil, climatic factors, etc. prevailing in the area. Literally, the term ecosystem is derived from the Greek word okio. Okio is nothing but the house and a dwelling place with the inhabitant living together and interacting with each other in some definite ways. This interaction is primarily for food. So basically interaction, this interaction, as I told you, it is not talking to each other, but it is being eaten or eating. So the animal, which is a small animal, which is a herbivorous animal, will be dependent on the plants which are growing over there, and then the other carnivorous animals and the omnivorous animals are going to be dependent on those herbivorous animals which are going to be eaten away by them. So accordingly, the interaction is eat or get eaten. So eat and be eaten. To understand it better, let's see this particular kind of a forest ecosystem. Now in a forest, like any other ecosystem, the general chain of relationship among the organism is same. The food producers, the plants, and the food consumers, animals, depend on each other. The plants, so in a forest, what is going to happen? There is mainly what are the main contents of the forest? The living organism will be two. First is the trees or the plants, and the second will be the animals living over there. So there is a first interaction. क्या होगा? सबसे पहले plants, they are the producers. They are going to produce their own food, and then they are going to be acting as a food for the herbivorous animals. So that's why it is the food producers, the plants, and the food consumer, the animals. Now, forest is large area of land with a dense growth of trees and a large variety of shrubs, bushes, grasses, etc. All these plants produce their own food through photosynthesis and are therefore categorized as self-food producers, more technically called the autotrophs. Okay, auto means self, trophs means the tropic, that is food, that is, so autotrophs is nothing but the one which produces its own food. Okay, so the one which produces its own food is called as autotrophs. That's why the plants are called as autotrophs. Next, there are plant-eating animals, the herbivores, such as deer, rabbits, pigeons, sparrow, and parrot, and even like a grasshopper, cricket, butterfly, bees, etc. So all these are the different kinds of animals which will be there. They all eat the plant directly or eat their fruits, flowers, etc., and even suck the plant juices. We know that they are going to suck the nectar from the flowers, so the bees are going to be the first one to suck the juice. All such animals are ranked as primary consumers. So what we see first is that in an ecosystem, the first one is a autotroph. The autotrophs are basically the plants, and then comes the one which is going to be the primary consumer. The primary consumer is the one which is going to be herbivorous. So it will be herbivore is the kind of animal which is going to be over here. So herbivores are the one which will be primary consumers. Next to the primary consumers there are animals like tiger, lion, wolf, then lizards, then snakes, some birds which capture the herbivores and eat their fleshes. So next over here are the secondary consumers. So that is secondary consumer. Now the secondary consumer is the one who is a carnivore. Okay, so it's a carnivorous animal which is going to be the secondary consumer over here. Now, so carnivores or the secondary consumers. Now consider another possibility in a forest involving one more stage of food level, that is grass producer eaten by a grasshopper. So there is a grass, the grass is growing, there is a grasshopper which is eating the grass. So grasshopper becomes the primary consumer. Now this grasshopper is being eaten by the frog. Okay, so we are saying that, okay, we are talking about carnivores which were like lion and tiger and wolf and all, but not necessarily to be that the secondary consumer could be such wild animal only. It could be even a simple frog, because frog is going to live on grasshopper. So the grasshopper over here is the primary consumer, but the frog is a secondary consumer. Now after that, the frog is going to be eaten away by the snake. So the snake becomes the next level over here, which is called as the tertiary consumer. So the snake, suppose the snake, and then further, it is not the end of it over here. So there will be another one which is called as the tertiary consumer. Now this tertiary consumer, there are going to be levels in this case. Like for example over here, the first thing was that the frog is being eaten by the snake. Fine. Now the snake can be eaten by the peacock. So the snake is eaten by the peacock. Then the peacock is another level of tertiary consumer. So we see that even after the secondary consumer, there could be another upper levels of consumers also, because the chain is going to go on from the smallest insect to the highest kind of animal. So accordingly, all such food levels are called the trophic levels, meaning food obtaining steps in the food chain. So we call this thing as a food chain. So food chain is because it is going to be a chain. This being eaten by this, then it is being eaten by this eaten by this eaten by this, aise karte karte karte, it is forming a chain. So that's why it is called as a food chain. And that is not the end of it, because even when none of the animal dies, it is going to be eaten away, because it is not going to remain as a dead animal over there itself. Okay, so you can see, eating the dead, all the different trophic animals, level animals, die due to one reason or the other. In such dead material is not eaten by the dead putrefying is now, okay, such dead material is not eaten by the dead putrefying flesh and human cleavages. It is broken down to bacteria and fungi in soil, thus helping in the return of nutrients back into the soil for the plants to grow. So what exactly they mean to say is that if any particular animal dies, okay, then many times it happens that the scavengers may eat that particular kind of animal, or uske baad mein, but they cannot eat them completely. It is not possible for them to eat them completely, or sometimes it is not eaten away completely. In such cases, that particular animal, that particular dead body of that animal is going to get decayed by the bacteria and the fungi around it. The bacteria and fungi which are over there, they are going to decay that thing, and that decay is going to convert them into the soil. So the soil is going to get back its nutrient, which is going to be used by whom? The autotroph plants. Because plants, they need some kind of nutrition from the soil. So soil ka nutrition is going to come back by which method? That is the dead and decayed plants and animals which are going to go into the soil are going to act as a fertilizer, or you can say act as a nutrients for increasing the soil nutritivity. So thus, when a pond of thus in a forest or in any other ecosystem, the chain of type of food obtainers will be as follows. The first will be the producers, that is the green plants. Second is primary consumers, that is the herbivores. Okay. The next is tertiary consumers. Over here, the secondary consumers, which may be a primary carnivore, and then the tertiary consumer, which will be a secondary carnivore. So we can consider here as a primary one, and then there could be a secondary carnivore. So secondary carnivore with the one which will be eating the primary carnivore. So accordingly, we have this particular kind of a chain from producer to primary consumer to secondary consumer to tertiary consumers. Now we come to the components of the ecosystem. So ecosystem can have many components, but we will divide the components into two parts, which is easier for us to understand. One will be the living part. So all living organisms in that particular ecosystem will be considered to be as the biotic component of the ecosystem. So we have over here that the ecosystem will be having two components. The first component will be the living organisms, that will be the biotic one, and the other one is abiotic. So biotic and abiotic. So what will be the abiotic? All the non-living components like the soil, the sunlight, the water, the environmental conditions, weather conditions, the climatic conditions, all these come under the abiotic component. So that's why we see over here the first one as the biotic components. So in an ecosystem, there are two categories of components: the living component, all kinds of plants, animals and microorganisms, called the biotic component, and several non-living components such as sunlight, air, water, warmth, etc., collectively called as abiotic component. The biotic component of an ecosystem consists of the following sequence of trophic food levels. So as I told you, they are autotrophs and also they are the food levels. So the first food level is the green plant, trophic level 1. So trophic level 1 over here will be the green plants. These consist of trees, bushes and grasses. These are the starting point of the nourishment chain for all the life in the forest ecosystem. And they produce They produce the food through photosynthesis, thus categorized as self-food producers or autotrophs. All the different food levels next to the autotrophs are covered under a common category, heterotrophs, meaning differently nourished. So one is autotroph and other is heterotroph. Autotroph means self-nourished, heterotroph means nourished by something else. So trophic level 2 is plant-eating animals, the herbivores. These are the vast variety of animals such as the deer, rabbit, rats, pigeon, parrot, grasshopper, bees, etc. They directly eat the plants of their parts such as fruits, seeds, flowers, etc. or suck the plant sap from their leaves or stem. So basically all those animals or insects which are going to depend on the plants for the nourishment, that will be coming under the category of the tropical level 2, which are nothing but the herbivores. Producers versus consumers, as described earlier, the green plants are ranked as producers, the plant-eating animals are ranked as consumers. They consume the food produced by the plants, or even more technically a primary consumer, because they are first direct plant eaters. So that's why we call it as the primary consumer. So plants are producing the food eat for themselves as well for others. Those particular animals which are going to be directly having the plants as their food, they are called as the primary consumers. So that is the first direct plant eaters. Trophic level 3, that is the flesh-eating animals or carnivores. These are animals which capture their prey, some herbivores, and eat it. Example, tiger, wolf, snake, lizard, certain birds, etc. These are also described as secondary consumers eating the primary consumers. So the one which are going to live on the primary consumers by killing them, by making them prey, then they are called as the secondary consumers, or we can easily call them as trophic level 3. Trophic level 4, that is second rank flesh eaters. Peacock can be a good example of the third rank of the consumer. Its food chain sequence can be as plant, the producers, eaten by the rat being eaten by the snake, and the snake is eaten by the peacock. So that's why this is the fourth level of the consumer, and we can say the third level of the heterotrophs. Besides the above mentioned four chain rise levels, there are yet another category of organisms that feed on dead material of the organism occupy the above four trophic levels. These can be further divided into scavengers, detritivores and decomposers. So apart from the four levels of primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, there is one more level which is including all the three levels, primary, secondary and tertiary. ये तीनों के तीनों को वो combine करता है. क्यों? Because they are the dead bodies of these consumers which are eaten away by the decomposers. So there are basically three kinds of such animals which are, or you can say not animals but organisms which are going to feed themselves on these dead organisms. They can be considered to be as first is detritivores, second is decomposers and finally that is the scavengers. So detritivores, the scavengers feed on dead animals and plant material, for example vultures, kite, crow, some insects, etc. So the one which is going to, like you must have seen many times that if a mouse is dead in a road, suddenly you will see some one or two crows coming over there and eating away that particular this mouse. So basically what they are going to do is they are going to eat the dead and the decayed substances. So dead material, dead bodies are going to be eaten away by the animals such as vultures, crows, etc. That's why they are called as scavengers. The scavengers, we can also call them to be as a natural cleaners of our society. The next one, detritivores and decomposers consume the remains left by the scavengers. So whatever the scavengers cannot eat and it is just left over there, to this particular remains, the detritivores and the decomposers are going to attack, and attack means they are going to be eaten away by the detritivores and the decomposers. Detritivores such as earthworms, millipedes, slugs, etc. feed on detritus or decomposing plants and animal parts as well as fishes, while decomposers obtain nutrition by absorbing nutrients that result from the breakdown of the dead organic material. So decomposers are going to take out the nutrients from the dead and the decay organism and are going to suck that thing out. So that's why bacteria, fungi, protists fall under the category of decomposers, as they are unable to ingest dead matter directly. They do not have the capacity to eat them. That's why they are going to have a process which is called as external digestion. Okay, so what they do is that they give out a particular kind of enzyme. That enzyme is going to sit on over here. That enzyme is going to act on the food material. That food material is going to become into simpler substances which this bacteria can inject into its body easily. So that's why we see the fungal infections over there. The fungal infection hota kya hai? That is basically that area has been decomposed so that it can be taken out, the proteins or whatever is there, it can be easily taken out by that particular organism, that is decomposer. The next we see is a biotic component. The abiotic non-living component is in an ecosystem constitutes the following. So abiotic component, that is firstly sunlight, best thing because everything is related to sunlight. For the production of food in green plants by photosynthesis, we know very well the main source of any energy on earth is sunlight. If there is no sunlight, there is no energy possibility. Right from the rains, we know very well rains are formed because of the evaporation of the water. If sunlight is not there, there is no evaporation, no water cycle, so no water at all. So इसीलिए वहाँ से भी कोई से भी नहीं मिलेगा. वैसे ही the plants, if they don't get sunlight, no photosynthesis, no producers, no herbivores, no carnivores, nothing. So basically you can see that sunlight is the main source of any energy. The next is air around us. To provide oxygen to the plants and animals for respiration and carbon dioxide to plants for photosynthesis. You know that plants are going to respire day and night completely. Throughout the day and throughout the night, the plant first respires, in which it takes in oxygen and gives out carbon dioxide. But in the daytime, apart from respiration, it does one more function, and that is photosynthesis, wherein it takes in carbon dioxide and gives out oxygen. So this process of taking in carbon dioxide and giving out oxygen is photosynthesis, by which it produces its own food. So the air is that particular raw material for the plant to take in carbon dioxide and give out oxygen. To serve as a medium to flight for birds and insects. If air is not there, plants and animals, the birds and all, they cannot fly, because air is the one which is giving them that particular buoyancy to fly. To serve an emergency for the dispersal of seeds, fruits, pollens by the blowing of wind. You've seen wind pollinated flowers. क्या होता है? Wind आया, pollen grains उड़े, and they sit on the stigma, and the pollination takes place. So all these are dispersal of seeds. Plant है, fruit का rupture हुआ, the seeds are being falling down because of the air, and they fall on in different areas and grow into a new plant. So air becomes the media for their dispersal. Next is water, received as rainfall and absorbed as soil water, and then taken by the plants or consumed by the animals in drinking from drains, puddles or rivers. So basically we know that rainfall is the main source of the water, and this water is going to be absorbed by the soil, which is going to be taken by the plants. जो soil में absorb नहीं हुआ, flow हो रहा है, वो कोई भी plant या कोई भी animal जो है, it will be using it for drinking purpose, or for just it will be forming from drains or puddles or rivers. The next is temperature. Hot, mild or cold temperature of a region influences the body functions of the plants and animals living in that region. So it will all depend that how the plant is or the animal is going to survive. Accordingly, their fur, their particular body structure will be such that they will be able to survive either an extremely hot climate or an extremely cold climate. So depending upon what kind of climatic conditions are around them, they will be having a different kind of skin, or they will be having a different kind of structure to support that particular life cycle. So that was temperature, and finally it's soil. Soil is in a way is the foremost component of the forest, and for that matter even for all other ecosystems. See, soil is the basic. Why soil is the basic? Because everything, the house of any particular thing, the plants के लिए anchoring वगैरह जो भी है, it is on the soil. So the trees, grass, bushes grow in the soil. Soil contains water and minerals, nutrients like sodium, potassium, etc. required by the plants. Soil also contains microorganisms, bacteria, etc. It also provides a dwelling place for burrowing animals like rats, snakes, as well as earthworms, which even swallow and the mud containing dead organic matter. So you can see that soil not only gives you the nutrients to the plants, but it also is a place for animals which stay in burrows. And not only that, earthworm is one which is going to eat the soil and take its nutrients from the soil. The soil types are different in plains or hills, mountains, etc. In desert, the soil provides support to prickly pear and date palm. So you can see that depending upon the soil, the plants which are growing over there will be of different kinds. So like we can see the date palm trees in the desert areas, just because it is being supported, the plant are supported only by such kind of soil conditions. Even pond, river and lake have some kind of a soil at their bottom which is required by the organism living there. So that was the different biotic and abiotic components of the ecosystem. The next what we see is the food chains and food webs.